Today, we have a very special treat. We're getting to interview one of our hosts, Natasha Leas. She is owner of Studio 360, home of 360 All Stars. They just started a world team this year. They've been around for a very long time, and we'll get deeper into that. She's also a dog mom and a mindset specialist working with James Silvis and working with a lot of really, really incredible teams across the country, including names like University of Minnesota. We'll get into more of that as well, but we're just really excited to let our listeners get a deep dive into Natasha and all of the experience and expertise that she has. That I admire most about her actually is a program that she has at her studio where she focuses on the mindset and the life skills of her athletes. And to say she pours into the families at her studio would be an understatement. Guys, she's just really amazing. And I think paving the way for what dance studios should be. And so we're super excited to dive deeper. Hey, Natasha.
Hey, thank you. You're so sweet. Such a
Of
sweet
course. And
intro.
I mean, those are just a couple of the things that you've done and things that I admire you for. So we'll start you off with the same question we ask everyone. Adversity is how we learn, how we grow. What has been your biggest struggle to get to where you are now?
Man, this is like giving the taste of our own medicine. Like we're tasting our own medicine right now. Okay. The biggest struggle. Yeah, I think this is something I struggled with, but then continue to struggle depending on the day. That I think everyone's familiar with, but it's imposter syndrome. That just hits really hard. I think that's something that just from a young age of like, I didn't have the traditional upbringing. I didn't have the traditional dance journey, college journey, just journey. Would it be like your typical, like, oh, that's how you got to where you are today? And so in that, I've learned there's so many great things, resiliency and leadership within the leadership, how to literally fail and fail again and come out of that, come out even stronger. But I think because of that, the imposter syndrome hits really hard depending on the day of, and that's something that I just work with constantly with like I am a big advocate of therapy for anybody to be able to increase your emotional intelligence. And so I think I feel like emotional intelligence is something that we have to have as leaders. I think we have to, you can go to college to learn business, you can go and on a dance team or studio to learn dance, but emotional intelligence is going to take you further.
Yeah. And what's so cool is that's something you're teaching the kids at your studio now. I remember being at your studio doing choreography, and on the wall, you had hanging all of your little kids. I don't know if it was like minis, tinies, youth, whose it was, but it was their energy buses, right? Because like based on John Gordon's energy bus. And I thought that was so cool. And then I remember you telling me like, yeah, I meet weekly with these teams and we talk about these things, and it doesn't cost the families any extra, but it's the work that matters most. I'd love to hear more about how you work that into your studio and what that looks like.
Yeah. So funny that you said the energy bus. I did that probably 3 weeks ago with a mini intermediate team. I pulled that out mostly because they're brand new to competition dance, first of all. And then they were struggling with understanding, okay, I learned the routine, but now we're cleaning the routine. And that made me pull out that energy bus and reframe the mindset and also teach them like competition dance. You come from like a recreational recital class, like you're not really, okay, now you
Yeah.
learned it, you go on stage, perform it. Now it's
For
like compete.
for our listeners, can you dive into what that is and then
Yeah.
tell us how you do it? Just for the ones who maybe aren't familiar with John Gordon.
Yeah, so the energy bus, they have it for adults. So there's an adult version, but then there's a kids picture book version of the energy bus that's really cute. It's more school based. I was a former kindergarten teacher for 9 years, maybe 9 years. And so the energy bus, it walks the student through his day, and like on the bus there's different rules, and it's about being positive. It's about like energy vampire. It talks about energy vampires. It talks about just
Energy
like
vampires being people who suck the energy out of you.
energy out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you suck the energy out. It talks about having positive vision in your day. So starting your day thinking positively, having that vision of what that looks like. So it's a cute way to for kids to see the energy bus, like what does that mean, and learn how to reframe their brain on positivity and not think like the worst, but think the best and how to be kind to others. And so there's also like a no bully. There's a part where the boy's getting bullied. And so there's no bullies allowed on the bus. So it's really awesome. It's more school based, but yet it works in the studio space as well. And so while I read that book, they have a bus and I have like our studio logo on it, and it depends on the age, but this age, I had them at each of the bus windows was one of the rules, and so we would write a word that they could remember from that rule, and then they got to decorate their bus because that's always fun while you're reading, and then they take that home and get to share that with their families. So, how we incorporate now in our competition life in our with our all-star team, I have a set schedule where I go in either during we try not to use class time. We try to always do extra time, like outside of their class time. Sometimes it doesn't always work that way, but most of the time it's 30 minutes outside of their actual scheduled rehearsals. If I use 30 minutes, I'm like really strategic on when I'm doing that. But it depends on the team, the age, on what we're focused on. Step one, what is a team? What does that mean to be on a team? What does that look like? Like I said, this mini intermediate team, they are all brand new to competition dance. So it was helping with that positive mindset. What does that look like? Where I get to like the youth team and we read a story about Mia Hamm and talked about like her story and how that inspired us. And then I asked them guiding questions that led to discussions on failure. Like, how do we look at failure? And one of the questions that we asked was, if if there was no competition, if there was no judges, there was no trophies or no medals, no recognition, no audience, would you still dance? And it was really interesting to see their answers. Our youth ages 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, so 10 to 13-year olds. And the answers varied. Um, and it was really, we create a safe space for them so they can be honest. Because a couple of them were like, one of them was really bold and was like, no, like, why would I dance if I wasn't gonna, if like, no, it's for no audience. Like, why would I do that? And instead of being like, "You're thinking wrong," because that's fine if that's her motivation is, to perform for others and,
Yeah, if you love to perform, you love to perform.
right, right. So, like, I was like, "You're not wrong," and I think for them as dancers, they're used to, like, right or wrong, and these discussions are more open, and it helps me to see where their mindset is and help see maybe a different perspective, have discussions where others are like one girl's like, "I don't even care, like, I'll dance anywhere, like, I'll dance outside if there wasn't even a studio." Like, she has that love and passion that's more for herself, and, we wanna continue to help drive that intrinsic motivation, but also understand that at a high competition level, that can get lost, like, the why can get lost on for these kids, and and especially when they're developing a competition at an early age, there's always that worry that they're putting, all their self-love into, well, how did I do at dance? Or what does my coach say? Or is my coach looking at me? Or what did my parents say? Or what place did I get? All the extrinsic, external motivators instead of we are trying to fuel that internal flame.
Yeah, that's tough, especially with the little ones, and that's one thing that I think is tough about, like, tinies and minis is, like, yes, they're on these all-star competition teams, but it's how do you make sure that they don't connect their placement with their sense of worth? And I think you do a really good job at that. How are other ways that you foster that in those kids?
Yeah. In one sense, it's easier when they're tinies and minis because, I mean, they're just wide eyed and eager and love dance and excited for anything and everything that you do and are just, in a way, it's easier as far as being motivating, if that makes sense. Like, I don't Chinese and minis don't know anything but full out. Like, I think it's around the youth age they start to figure out, "Oh, I don't go full out right here." I'm like, "What is that? Can we keep that momentum?" But anyway, it is hard. It is hard, and I think we keep having discussions about it, and last year we did an exercise where, I drew a picture of a person on, like, the whiteboard, and I talked about points. I was like, every day you wake up and you start with 100 points. And I like made up a story. I just made this story up of like this girl, she gets up at her house and realizes that she can't have her favorite cereal because there's no milk. And then she decides, okay, I can't have cereal. Well, then her mom's upset because she's not ready for school. And I just walked through this day and I'm like, in each of these incidences, like she gets points, less points, less points. So she walks into the school day, she's already at like 70 points. She gets to school, someone makes fun of her. And we just like, I keep kind of going through almost what a day could look like for somebody. And then I did add the positives like, oh, she's got to sit by her best friend in art class. Yay, 5 points. So I'm just like going through a story, taking points, adding points away. And then I was like, then she gets to dance and I walked through what they might hear at a dance. Like they she goes to dance class and she doesn't get picked to show her routine or whatever it might be. And what the story is, it's to show them that like if you're someone, this kind of goes back to energy vampires, if you're someone that's like not kind or pointing out what's wrong in someone, like you don't know if they're only at 2 points that day and you just took their last point away, or if they're at an 80 or a 90, and so we just talked and it was very visual and we talked with them about, you know, our job their job as a teammate and at 360 is to walk in and have everyone leave with 100 points. Like if you walked in with 50 points from school or from life, like you want to walk out of here knowing that you just gained another 50 points of feeling good. And they could understand that. It was very visual for them. And then from that, they took post-it notes and I had each dancer stand in the middle, had some background music, played a song, and everyone wrote a word of what that dancer like what word comes to their mind when they see that dancer. It was like strong, powerful, kind, um, what and it couldn't be I told them that they couldn't use dance words. I didn't want to I was like, we're not going to use like flexible or because I was like, people are beyond what they can do in dance, right? And they then got to run and stick the sticky notes on them and I did it even as their coach, like, I wrote a word and then they got to pick their favorite word and we hung them up in the studio and they had their name on it. So like anytime they were having a hard day, they can look over and be like, that's what my teammate thinks of me. And a lot of them told me that they took all those post-it notes and took them home and put them in their room. And so I think it's like things like that with the minis and tinies is like stories. They got to hear the stories. Um they got to have visuals. Um and it continuing for them to just be the best teammate. Like when I look at kind of our curriculum that I go through, like for minis and tinies, it's like our goal is for them to know how to be the best teammate they can be and what does that look like, feel like, sound like, is something that we work all season long on.
It's amazing. So you have the energy bus, you have the points story, making it visual, you have the post-it activity. What's another powerful activity that you do with your teams that a coach could listen and take and apply right now?
Yeah. Um, this is with the youth team last year. So it was kind of, this one was more dance related, but I think something that youth generally that age struggle with, especially like in jazz, lyrical, contemporary, is like story. Well, even in palm, like you're always telling us, no matter what routine you're doing, you're telling a story.
Mm.
And that requires them to really tap into their emotions, right? And like that's hard for that age to do because they're focused on if you're saying 6, 7 or not. And so we last year, um, I told them of a story, and it's about two wolves, and it's a fable. You can look it up, but it's all about like which wolf are you going to feed, and you can feed the positive wolf that has all the positive words, or you can feed the negative wolf that has all the negative self-talk. And so I told them that story, and then I had them go into their own spot, turned the lights off in the studio, and I played their song. And I said, I want you just to close your eyes and listen to this. After this, we listen to the story and find words that stick out for you, um, emotional, like what. And then they had like a little journal and paper, pen, whatever. And I just said, if a feeling comes up, I just want you to close your eyes. And if you have a feeling, I want you to jot that down. And so we listened to the song, and a few of them, I had like one or two. And that's the other thing, like some 10-year-olds, like that's really hard. It's really hard for them. And that's okay if they struggle, because there's usually a 12, 13-year-old that does get it, and they're in the environment, and it's okay if they struggle, and it's okay if not everyone understands it, but they'll get there. It's just that exposure piece. But so they came back and told us the words, and then I said, okay, now I want you, and I was like, if you didn't come up with a word, because there's like two that was like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, I want you to pick one of the words you heard and use that word. And so turned the lights off, played their music, and I said, the first word that you choose, I want you to dance that way. And I go, it's to their song. I'm like, not the choreography. I just want you to dance, freestyle dance to that word with their song. And I tell you what, like, that was powerful. That was powerful. That was the day they could actually connect and to the music and to the why. Because I was like, otherwise we're just going out there and we're robots doing things that the next team's going to do. And, there's really no meaning behind anything that we're doing. And then uh I think I had like one person, I was like, who's like going to be, wants to be brave enough to let us watch. And so after we did it as a full group, someone volunteered and we watched, and people were inspired. Like they were really inspired by it and just really loved it. So I think that those exercises, especially for the youth, like they could tell me today that was one of their favorite things we did. They actually
Yeah.
asked me recently for they're doing a contemporary piece this year, and they're like, when do we get to do that? So like they
Mm.
definitely, and if you can get those kids to like something that you did, it's a win. Um, that 10 to 13, they're a tough crowd. They're a tough crowd. So I feel like if you can really get them to buy in, um, you know, they're they're hooked. So I think the more you can teach about emotions, um, why we think the way we do, teaching the science behind why we think how we do, why are our brains, and I had to teach the youth just recently that, our brains are wired to see negativity first, and kind of break that down, the RAS, like how our brains, like it's example of like if you go out and you buy a blue car, you're like, I'm the only person that has this blue car, and then you're driving home and all of a sudden you see that blue car, everywhere. So that's our brain just noticing what's in our environment, and um we see what we seek. I think that's something James likes to say too, is like we see what we seek. And so I've been focused with them on like, it's so easy for us to say the negative, say the bad, because that's what's easy, versus like focus on the good and the progress that we make.
All good stuff, and that's the stuff that when your alumni come back, they're like, "Yeah, I remember when we did this, I remember when we did that," and I still use those lessons today. So you've told us a little bit how you work on your kids who are, most of the studio kids are 18 or under. Working with young adults
Yeah.
is a whole different game,
Yeah.
and how awesome that you've gotten to work with the incredible James Silvis, who we've had on here before, with collegiate programs. Tell us about that. What's the difference working with those older, more advanced dancers?
So, yeah, the collegiate dancers, I mean, we like to say that like talent gets you in the room, but your attitude and effort is what helps you stay there. And with college dancers, in my experience so far with James, is it's not big shifts that have to happen with those individuals. It's a lot of working on belief systems and just little shifts, like just from a way to think about something can change the trajectory of how they walk into practice, how they hold themselves in practice, and how they go out to perform. Um, we see it quite a bit of people that also have that imposter syndrome that comes really loud because like when you're on elite college teams, like you're typically was probably one of the elite dancers in your studio or dance high school dance team that you're coming from, and then you're going onto a team where everybody is equally as great and amazing, and so that imposter syndrome can get really loud. And so it's really subtle shifts, teaching more about the science of how our brain works, giving them tools such as like good better how, um example of like every time you're doing your routine, like first thing is to start with the good. And for dancers, that's really hard. And typically people will say one surface level good to then get to the 13 better. And I said bad, but we think of the better as bad, but really in practice is better bad? No, it's identifying your goals and what we want to make better. So, and then the how, like, how are we going to achieve that? And so just giving them tools. I feel like college dancers really need meditation. Um, if I had a dollar for every time I heard a college student say, I don't sleep, or I don't know how to manage my schedule, or maybe I do know how to manage my schedule, but because I manage my schedule so well, I don't have time to do anything else, which can lead to burnout. And I think being able to take 10 minutes of their day to do meditation just truly can be so impactful and calm. And I've heard some people say, like, they've never done that. They've never done anything like that when we've done meditation with them. Some people think that meditation is woo-woo, and we're here to say it's not. It's actually how, the highest level CEOs and entrepreneurs and athletes, it's how they work at the tip of their craft. Like, that's what they're doing. And so I think introducing those type of skills to them and just some new ways to look at things can make all the difference in at the college level.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say? I think something all of us dancers, a lot of our listeners, if they're dancers or even coaches do, is they see those top performing teams and they think, everyone looks up to them. Obviously, like everyone does look up at them. And so look up to them. And so then we think that they just have it all together and everything's always perfect. Can you share any insight on the behind the scenes of those top performing programs?
Yeah, first and foremost, nobody ever has it all together, ever. Social media is a filter, and no one is ever posting their bads. I mean, there might be after nationals, someone might post a reel of a bunch of their fails, which everyone laughs and find it. I do like that. I think Ohio State did that. Like right after nationals, somebody posted like a reel of like all their fails, and I think that was really important. I was like, whoever, I'm not sure which team, I'm pretty sure it was Ohio State. But I thought that was cool because I do think that the elite college teams have an understanding that people think that it's all butterfly and rainbows and they have it all together and they never mess up and they never not like how they look on the nationals floor is how it always looks. And that's just not true. That's an
Mhm.
illusion. Um, I think the college level dancers have self-discipline for sure. Those dancers are in school. If they're not in classes, it they're training. Maybe it's weightlifting, maybe it's a Pilates class, or it's a dance rehearsal. And college, honestly, isn't just about the nationals. They're doing their community events. They might be at a birthday party on a Saturday doing some fundraiser, because
Yeah.
someone's paying their team to be at their birthday party. They're studying, they're doing all their college courses, homework, and then all the responsibilities of the dance team. And so that you have to be disciplined. You have to be able to push through the uncomfortable of you're working tired. Like I said, like that's why meditation's so important for them, because they're struggling too. Maybe it's with an injury, maybe it's with getting the choreography, maybe the choreography changed. It's always evolving, and I think to kn to n think that once you make it to a certain team that the hard work stops is false. It gets harder every single level. James always says, "New level, new devil," and so there's definitely those challenges at every single level that you're at. No matter if you're a tiny and just trying to figure out what competition dance is, that's a challenge, to being a college D1 athlete and trying to figure out how to balance the schedule, and to have the pressure of, being at the top, but also having that legacy, right? Like you're walking into like the legacy of this school is to win a title or a double title. And so what does success look like? Defining success is really huge. That's huge for, I'd say, youth and up, being able to define what does success look like, and feel like. And that's going to be different from team to team, program to program, dancer to dancer.
If you could say one thing to all of the dancers out there, what would it be? Your one piece of advice or the biggest piece of advice?
Focus on you and your journey. Don't compare it. Comparison is the thief of joy, says Brene Brown. And this art that we get to do, we get in this industry that we get to be in, can have so much love and growth and connection. And I'm just grateful that you and I, this is what we do for our careers. It's pretty remarkable that we get to do this. But nothing will steal the joy by comparing yourself to someone else.
And so true. What about the coaches out there? If you could give all of the dance coaches one piece of advice, what would it be?
One, take care of you first. I have a great friend. His name's Jacob. He has a company called Intentionally Selfish, and his whole mission is about how you have to, when you're on an aircraft, they say, put on your oxygen mask, put yours on first before you can help others. And I think that's so true in anything we do as leaders. Um, have a routine, have boundaries, and create almost rituals of like time for yourself. And you're going to say, I don't have time, I don't have time. But you cannot be at your best self unless you are helping yourself first. If that is physically being active, if that's meditating, if that's taking a walk, doing something for you first. And then the next is we have to, like, this is my personal mission. Um, we have to continue to do better for the next generation. And that's what I do love about our generation, like you and I, like we see that we're like doing better. We're coaching differently because the kids are different, but we have to continue to do better. Our generation of coaches are seeing that. We're seeing that we're coaching kids differently because kids are evolving. They're so more self-aware. And I think something that happens is we feel like we got to get the cleans done and we have to get this big to-do list done and we have to do all this stuff dance wise, right? They got to get the turn sequence, they got to get the jumps, they got to get this part clean. And we tend to sometimes lose the whole reason why. Why are we here? What is the bigger picture? And what do we want these kids to walk away from this team? And it's not necessarily the dance technique. Yes, that's part of it. That's only part of it. But we want to raise really emotionally intelligent dancers to become emotionally intelligent humans for our next generation. And so I hear a lot of times, like, well, there's budget cuts, there's budget cuts, like money is getting thin, everything keeps going up, the price of everything's going up for a dance team to function at a high level. But mindset is crucial for your culture. And I look at it as you can either build a season or you can build a program. And building a season is just being in the now, but building a program, that's where your culture matters, your mindset matters, and year after year, kids continue to want to be in your program because of how they see people leaving the program better than they were entering it. So many coaches will say they don't have time for mindset. And as Brie always says, how do you not?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I know we're running low on time, so I'm going to throw it to you our last closing question that we do for everyone. What do you want your legacy to be?
I love that we're talking about legacy. That's been a topic this last few days. You know, I said my personal life mission is to be able to train elite dancers and emotionally intelligent dancers at the same time. Um, and it's really challenging, I think, to find the both. You either have these like really elite dancers, but maybe their emotional intelligence isn't 100% there. Or you have really emotionally intelligent dancers, but their technique's not there. So it's like, how do you do both? And that's my legacy on our dance industry is for us to merge the two and have really elite dancers that have great technique, be beautiful technique, and pushing the bar on what they can do and where the sport's going, but also highly emotional intelligence because we shouldn't get out of what we're doing and have to get a therapist. Like that shouldn't to heal the trauma that's happened in dance. And I think that's what we see a lot of. I think that's what we um yeah, we just see. And we see the trauma. And I there's not a place for that. Like that's not what dance is. We shouldn't have that. It should be building the strongest men and women that go out, and if they want to continue in helping this next generation in dance, they can do that well equipped. Or if they go into a boardroom or the surgical room or be a doctor, a teacher into the classroom, um, that they're equipped. They have the full package. And that's I hope to leave that on our industry is to have that full package, which is maybe why we have Studio 360, a complete circle. So that's
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I feel like there's so much we could dive even deeper into, and maybe we do that one day. Love you and can't wait to see what people get out of this.
thanks for interviewing me, friend.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Marley podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Marley